I welcome you into the D226 studios. Here we are. It's VidNotes time. It's time to take a bite out of VidNotes. It's 9-3. It's just delicious. The learning target, please write this down. I will understand the Cuban Missile Crisis. These two superpowers and these two leaders are very close to a nuclear war. What prevents the war? How does it almost happen? Why are they sitting on hydrogen bombs? Let's see. First, let's review the Asian wars of the Cold War. We start with China, the Chinese Civil War. When was it? From 1927 to 1950. Who fought? The citizens of these two men, Zedong's communists, Mao Zedong, and Kai-shek's nationalists. Chiang Kai-shek, the USSR, backed Zedong. The United States backed Kai-shek. What was the result? Communists win, and China becomes a communist country. And what happens to the losers? The nationalists move to the island of Taiwan, east of mainland China. Let's go over to Korea, the Korean War. There's North Korea, still communist today. The Korean War took place from 1950, and it ended in 1953. Why did the U.S. fight in this war? To contain communism in North Korea. What was the result? The U.S. prevented communism from spreading to the south, to South Korea. That's good. But 35,000 U.S. troops die in the Korean War. Should we have gone? Then let's go further southwest to Vietnam and the Vietnam War. When was it? It started in 1955. It ended in 1975. Why did the U.S. fight in this Asian war? To contain communism in North Vietnam. And please write this down. The name of the North Vietnamese leader was Ho Chi Minh. He led the North Vietnamese communists. And what was the result of this? The North wins and communism spreads to South Korea. Wah, wah. 50,000 U.S. troops die, more than 50,000. Was that too many? Should we have been involved in Vietnam and Korea at all? Some people say yes, some people say no. Let's review the overall Cold War. It starts in 1945. Right after World War II, and it ended in 1991 with the collapse, with the breakup of the Soviet Union. What was it? Let's define the Cold War. The US and the Soviet Union threatened each other with nuclear weapons, tough talk, and technology. And here are the nuclear weapons. America has atomic bombs. They use it in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they also test the very first hydrogen bomb. It was called Mike in 1952. And this was the bomb, the hydrogen bomb tested by the Soviet Union. It was called Tsar Bomba. They were very powerful. Let's talk about some bomb vocabulary. Nuclear deterrence. Deter means to stop. This phrase is a theory that supports having nuclear weapons, saying that they will prevent other countries from attacking you with their nuclear weapons. So as long as you have nuclear weapons, you're good, because no one wants to start a nuclear war. If this man presses this button, he's going to explode himself too. The Cuban Missile Crisis. Here we are. It's Cuba when the Cold War gets hot. Where is Cuba? There it is, just south of Florida. It's 90 miles from the tip of Florida in a city called Miami, so very close to the United States. Let's summarize the Cuban Missile Crisis. When was it? October 1962. What were the countries involved? Cuba, the Soviet Union, and the US. And what are the three main characters of the Cuban Missile Crisis? To the left here, we have Fidel Castro with his Cuban cigar. He's Cuba's communist leader. In the middle, we have John F. Kennedy. He is the US president, the 35th president of these United States. And to the right is Nikita Khrushchev. He is the Soviet leader during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. What happens? Background info on the Cuban Missile Crisis. In 1959, Fidel Castro leads a revolution and turns Cuba into a communist country. Then, in 1961, Castro forms an alliance with Soviet leader Khrushchev. And this has big, big, big implications for the US. How did the crisis get heated? October 1962, the US government discovers that the Soviet Union has built nuclear missile launching sites in Cuba 90 miles from Florida. That deserves a worried emoji. Uh-oh. And there's evidence. US spy planes have taken photographs of the building of this nuclear site. So there it is. It's evidence that the Soviets are helping Cuba and that these dangerous bombs are being built. Uh-oh. The crisis gets heated because of the power of the bombs, and there are two different types of missiles. The medium-range missiles can reach cities in the south, like Atlanta, and if they were to be fired, the intermediate, the longer-range missiles, shown by this pink scope, they can basically hit most major cities in America, including DC, New York, Chicago, Dallas. Uh-oh, indeed. How did President Kennedy respond to this threat? Here's what he decided. One, he ordered a Navy blockade around Cuba, so US Navy ships surrounded the island country. And number two, Kennedy said the US Navy would sink any Soviet ship that tried to reach Cuba. And there were Soviet ships in October 1962 heading to Cuba to help build that nuclear site. What would happen? On October 24th, 1962, Soviet ships approached the US Navy blockade. And at the very last minute, they turned around and did not try to go through the blockade. Otherwise, would World War III have happened? What would have happened? We'll never know. Thank goodness. How did the crisis end? In short, compromise. Kennedy said that he agreed not to invade Cuba and to remove the US missile base in Turkey, this country right here where we had missiles that were able to hit the Soviet Union. We took that away. Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, agreed to remove nuclear missiles from Cuba. No more nuclear missiles in this island country. World War III was avoided. Whew. One research question. What question do you have about this really interesting story about the possibility of a nuclear war? Write down your question for 2 points. And when you're done with that, you are done with the 9-3 VidNotes. Until next time, this is Mr. Deegan, biting on some VidNotes. Take care. Yummy.